many of us are wearing something that they bought that belongs to a team? I can see our gentleman here. Please stand. Is it the Ghana team? The Ghana kit? Yes, you. Anyone else wearing a team uniform shirt, something that they got you? Are you wearing something? Oh, yeah. There you go. Anyone else? Please stand. Anyone else? There you go. So, can I ask you, where did you buy that? Where did you buy your jersey? So he doesn't buy, but do you sell them?
No, yeah, we sell them.
You sell them. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. How many of you are familiar with these two gentlemen on the screen? All of you? That's a good answer. I would be very worried if Ghanaians didn't know the Inaki brothers. I'd say I'd take them and adopt them into Kenya. So basically, you know, we're going to be talking about licensing and merchandising, and especially when we talk about how do we commercialize, how do we commercialize teams? You know, we're always talking about sponsorship, we're talking about gate fees, we talk about broadcast, but licensing and merchandising is a very big bit of commercialization of sports. But it's a bit where I asked if anyone knows, and very few people really understood, or if any, understood what it meant. So we're here today to demystify that whole topic. So please go to the next slide. Well, I mean, it's a huge market, and many times we will talk about, you know, shirt sales, we will talk about, I mean, today I've been given something really nice. This one my son won't take. We've discussed and said he will not take this one. So, you know, it's got a brand on it. If this didn't have any brand, would you recognize it? But it means something, right? If I have it in my cupboard somewhere and someone comes and sees it, then the first person will say, oh, where did you buy that? Or where did you get that with the AfroSport Summit brand? So it's a huge, huge business. When you talk about, you know, all the big brands, and, you know, this morning, was it, or yesterday, Arsenal released their Kenyan jersey. So if you look at that, you know, their third kit, it's got all Kenyan colors. We're very excited in our country. But how many of you have seen that? The other day we saw Mbappe has moved to Real Madrid, and he was out there on the field. Do you know how much they sold in terms of shirts on that one day? How much? $1 million? $1 million worth of shirts. So it's a value conversation, you know, it's a commercial conversation, but what does that really mean? So in 2023, the global license and sports merchandise market was estimated to be $35.1 billion. And the US owns 35% of that market. What is Africa's figure? You guys know, anytime I'm here, I'm always asking about figures. What's Africa's percentage in licensing and merchandising? Do we know? Okay, what is Ghana's? Do we have an idea? How do you run business when you don't know your numbers? True? So I'll give it over to Sarah, who is an expert. She has worked at FIFA for several years, and she's an expert in licensing and merchandising. And she'll take us through, and we'll have, you know, this conversation together with you. So to the next slide.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you guys for having me. I have been fortunate enough to go to a number of sports conferences in my day, and it always seems to be missing the licensing and retail part. So shout out to Cynthia and Prince for having us on this panel and enabling us to have a chat about it. So what is it? It's consumer products, it's global merchandise, it's brand marketing, it's merchandising, it's your club shop, it's your team shop, it's an e-commerce site that you're buying your jersey from. It's a lot of different things. I think people look at licensing and merchandise and sometimes think, oh, that's just the t-shirts and caps that you might buy at a stadium, but it's a lot more than that. and those numbers tell the story. It's an investment. I think the US probably do it the best, in my experience. And you think about the numbers that Cynthia just was talking then, you know, those businesses in the US are upwards of $1 billion in revenues back to the federations. So it's a really important part of the commercial conversation, and also the fan growth and fan experience conversation. In my view, I'm biased. So there's a lot of words on here. The presentation won't have a lot of words, but with this one, it's like, why? Why do we buy it? What is it, and why do we buy it? It is your official kit and your uniform. So the very first slide, what this gentleman is wearing as well, and all of your kit and uniform, it stems from that. It's the foundation, your kit, your uniform in sports, as well as the thing you play with, whether that's the football or your tennis racket or your baseball or your basketball. It's a key component of the program, and it kind of starts there, that it's elevated and it's your foundation, and then everything builds from that. So it's general merchandise, it's consumer goods, it's collectibles, it's whether that's your trading cards or your memorabilia, it's gaming. Big session yesterday, there was a lot of talk about EAFC as it is now, ex-FIFA, NBA 2K, all of that falls under licensing and revenue, and there's a big kind of area of experiential that works as well. If you ever go to an Arsenal camp in Kenya, that all is part of this consumer products and licensing and retail kind of family. And so why do we buy? Four sort of, I guess, key motivators, and if there's any more, we'd love to hear them. First and foremost, your passion. You're a fan, you love it, you need to have it. Secondly, it's a memory, it's collectability, it's something, it's your AfroSport Summit water bottle that you take to the gym every time, and relive that moment in the memory, and that very is pertinent to visiting a stadium, to going to a sporting event, to a World Cup, to an AFCON, to an NBA final, to a BAL, to a rowing championship, from using Jon's experience. It's quality assurance. You know, it's a really interesting market. Here there seems to be a fair bit of knockoff, and kind of not counterfeit, but it's sort of more of the non-licensed product. And if you buy the quality product and the quality assured product, the officially licensed product, then it's money going back to your club. So hopefully, as education and as it starts within the market, it'll start to become important from a consumer perspective. And then the last is just you like the product. It's cool. Social influence. It's cultural. Your third Arsenal kit designed by Labrum London. It's just cool, and it's not necessarily connected to the team or the event or the sport. It's a cultural kind of fashion part as well. So I feel like those are kind of the key motivators. If anyone feels like there's any more, we can definitely love to get that perspective. And then it's really sort of, here's this value creation comes from three parts of your IP. Your rights holder, using FIFA as an example, your tournament, and your players. This is obviously an example of one trading card. It all kind of falls under a collective kind of group licensing, player licensing umbrella, which is complex in its own right, and we definitely don't have time for that today. But the players, particularly in sports like basketball, football, individual sports, very tennis, you name it, a very important part of the licensing business, and the name, image, likeness element, and where that kind of sits, particularly within the rights of under a team, under a federation, under a tournament, and then how you build programs around that. So there's kind of three key elements of the IP. And if we are looking to build any kind of licensing business or retail business, there's essentially 6 areas, and we'll talk a little bit about that following this, so I won't go into detail. One is your intellectual property and your brand and your IP. The guys talked a fair bit about this yesterday at the session around gaming and esports. But essentially, it's the basis of what you're selling and how you build your program out. You're then looking at asset development and style guides. Sometimes it's not enough just to take a logo and have that mean something on a piece of product. Sometimes it is, but as you'll see, a lot of federations, particularly in events, will really invest in what that could look like as a consumer-facing brand. Then it comes down to your product, the stuff you want to buy, your retail partnerships, where you buy it from, and marketing and communications, how you know about it, basically, and then new business development, how you make money. Those are your 6 pillars. You need to thoughts, feelings, comments?
Just a question. So after, we've spoken about this, maybe just from the crowd, 3 IPs or 3 brands. I mean, you're looking at this, but which ones come to your mind from the Ghana sports side? 2, 3 guys, but just quickly give us examples. Guys, was the lunch that heavy? Huh? Was the lunch that heavy? Who had fufu for lunch? It feels like the lunch must have been very heavy. Anyone with 1 or 2 brands that they recognize or think about now that we've demystified what IP is? Yeah? Sorry? GFA logo? I know you know that. Yes. Sorry? Puma? Uh-huh. Do they have a partnership with GFA? With the Black Stars? Okay. And who manages the Black Stars? I like that because that word in itself is, Black Stars is an IP. Has it been registered as an IP? Black Stars. Good question. Is there anyone from GFA here? I could go and register it in Kenya and make sure that anything that's sold is under anything that's sold by the Ghana. And it sounds very simple, but it's that powerful, right? It's registered. Okay, great. Any other one? Any international ones that you recognize, apart from Puma? The Ghana flag? No. It looks like
it's not able to be trademarked. There are few countries with the same colors in West Africa, right? So it's kind of tricky. Which one? From a sports perspective? Nike, one of the biggest in the world, anything. But I like that you're all mentioning the licensee.
Sports apparel makers, and not necessarily. So you see, when you sit on our side as sports people, Nike then becomes a licensee, right? Because they see, like Puma works with Black Stars, right? With the GFA. So they buy the rights to the Ghana football team. Does that make sense? So in our perspective, the rights that we're talking about are the sports ones. So these ones here. If you look at the World Cup or the Olympics, right? Right now we will be, I think the Olympics is 26th. We'll have 26th or 27th is when we have the opening night. So I work closely with the National Olympic Committee, and there's so many different levels. So you have your international level, which is the IOC, then you have your local level, which is the national, it's not so clear. Better. There you go. So you have your national, your IOC, then you have who own the rings, which is also, an IP in itself, and the word Olympics. And then it goes down to the National Olympic Committee. So you have the Kenya National Olympic Committee and the brand that is created, that is Team Kenya, just like Black Stars. And then under that, then you have, at the global level, you have brands that have partnered with the international committee and whatever rights they can be able to do at the international level. Then you have the local ones. For example, the international ones, you have an example of Toyota. I believe Toyota has a partnership with the IOC. So at the local level, if, for example, Mercedes wanted to do something with the National Olympic Committee, then they cannot, because at the global level, Toyota has brought rights to partner with and use the IPs of the National Olympic Committee internationally. So there's a lot of law that goes in there, but we really just wanted us to understand, what these brands and what really an IP is. So I'm very fascinated that when we asked questions, a lot of us really thought about the apparel brands, which have their own IP on their own right, but are not necessarily owners of sports right. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. It's the co-brand. It's the Ghana that they're paying for. It's the mascot. It's the trophy. It's the tagline. One of the most famous, I guess, is "Just Do It." It's completely trademarked. No one else can use it. So there's a lot to do, with regards to the IP and how you register it, historic marks, all of those things. But essentially, these wonderful pieces of creative art are what partners are paying you to use and put on product. It's no different to sponsorship, except the key, it is different to sponsorship, but essentially you're already registering and you've already created the mark for partnership, for media, for all the things you use it for. In this scenario, it's based upon the royalty and revenue and the sale of the product. So the kind of key difference, I guess, with sponsorship, if Coke sponsor the Ghana Federation and they sell 1 bottle of Coke or 1 billion bottles of Coke, it's essentially the same right under their agreement. With product and licensing, the more shirts that Puma sell, the more revenue goes back to the federation or the club or etc. So it's a little bit product dependent, and that's why it's kind of cool, because it's creative and it's fashion and it's dependent on actually making product that all of us want to buy. So I'm going to hand it over to Jon, who'll talk a little bit about the intellectual property and where it comes from. Full disclaimer, this is not a CAF official logo.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, everyone. I don't know if you hear me well on this mic. No? All right, so I'm a marketing guy, specialized in sports, but I'm a marketing guy. And it's funny because I get all these different kinds of clients that come to me and say, listen, I want you to do my logo. And sometimes you quote the price and they're not willing to pay the price to get a logo. I was reading an interesting stat somewhere that said that only 25% of business owners, at least like small and medium-sized business owners, are willing to pay more than $200 for the design of a logo. And now with Canva, all these online tools, people just, pluck a logo out of somewhere and just put it there. But it's important to be able to craft a logo and for it to tell a story. At its best, logos are really an intersection between the science, because all the research that goes behind it, and also art. So this is one of the examples. Like she said, this is not a real logo for the next African Cup of Nations in Morocco, but it shows a lot of symbolism in there. You won't be able to see in detail, but there is a part with the lions in there, the top left, so you can see the eyes, the face of the lion. There's a part that's very important. Morocco is a kingdom. Their king is very important and central to their to things that they do within the country. So there's the crown there, and various parts of what is Morocco is integrated into this logo. And so it gives basically something that's easily identified. And on the slide before, you guys saw various logos, various pieces of art, and you would have been able to recognize it quite quickly. And that's what the point of getting a good logo is. You know, not trying to copy a Nike, who, by the way, only paid $35 for their first logo. But, you know, trying to do something that tells a story and that really appeals to your audience. After that, next slide, please. All right, so once you have your logo, something that's iconic, we can go into the things that you can able to do and some of the partnerships that you're able to do. So during the last AFCON that was in Ivory Coast, I saw some of you guys there. Felix was there, Sicho didn't come, but you know, the rest of you guys did come as well. They did some really cool stuff. CAF did some really cool stuff with Puma. So they had an e-commerce store where you could buy some of the merchandise. So you can see the Ghana version with Mohamed Kudus in there. They had from every single country. So you could see also the one from Côte d'Ivoire, bottom right, sorry, and the one in the middle also from Egypt and various things as well. So this is an example of licensing where you collaborate as CAF. You collaborate with Puma to come out with your own merchandise, as it were. So that's a really good example. And Puma being the official retail guys of CAF, they also came up with the ball, which was the Poku ball, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but there was a whole storytelling that went behind it. You know, Poku was one of the legendary Ivorian players. We had our own Guinean legends early on, but he was one of the legendary players, and I was also at the draw for the AFCON, and his son was there and presented the ball for the first time. So there was a really whole storytelling, which is something that's very important also in marketing. You know, the storytelling goes into the logo. The storytelling also goes into the way that you present the products that you will be able to come out with as well. So I mentioned this early on. This is the Poku ball, and in the background, that is where they presented the ball as well. And they did something which was fantastic. They were able to tell the whole story around Poku as a player. They did some videos, they did some content, especially in this day and age of social media. The content drives stories, like Daniel said early on, and creating good content is what they were able to do at this AFCON as well. And an interesting case here on the right is with the collaboration of Puma and CAF, they came up with this kind of merchandise. And you see an example there of Nigeria, right? And we all know that Nigeria is sponsored by Nike, right? So this was an interesting way for Puma as well to, you know, show themselves in Nigeria and also maybe encroach on Nike as well. So next slide, please.
And I think this is a good example of no IP. It's using the flag, which you can't register. And so it happens at FIFA with Adidas's rights. They'll do a similar thing across a country collection, and it's also from a second-tier perspective as well. It's really, really popular at tournament and events, as you can appreciate. You're Nigerian and you're at AFCON and you want a souvenir, and so they've created product for that demand. It's looking at the why. Looking at the stats, Daniel, looking at the why.
These are a couple other examples that you see on the right. So we talked about merchandisers, we talked about creating products. On the right, you can see a cap, you know, with the logo that was designed for this past African Cup of Nations. And then also something that Sarah was talking to us about yesterday, the importance now that has of the patches, the sleeve patches, and this is something that, you know, with the if I'm not wrong, with the Champions League, they made it really, really popular to be able to have your event on the sleeve, on the patch, to really, you know, immortalize that event as well. Sarah, if you want to maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the why, right? It's the souvenir. It's Real Madrid. They made it to the final. They've played in the Champions League. And so you can buy a Real Madrid jersey and you can buy one that also has a Champions League badge. And so when you look back at that season, you might prefer one that has the Champions League badge on it. So it's a revenue stream. It's a way that UEFA, and it doesn't make $1 million. It's a fan experience. It's much more of an emotive kind of play, but it's become a really important kind of factor to each of these kind of tournaments or events as it's starting to develop as a licensed category. In some sports around the world, particularly the US sports, there's also name and numbers. Premier League is name and numbers as well. There's a specific font with the Premier League logo, which is a retail licensing opportunity when you go and get it. Get your jersey with Baco from Arsenal. So my football knowledge is not 100% great on the player side. But yeah, this is really the extension of additional merchandise and licensing revenue that comes. Then you're going to kind of go into retail. Where do you buy it? It's great to have all this wonderful product and the amazing kind of Puma Ghana stuff, but where do you buy it? And there's kind of two key elements to this. It's your branded store, so what we call direct to consumer, so what you might buy at an event or a stadium from your own sport. In this case, the NBA store opened in, I think this is Cape Town or Joburg, one of them. Have opened some stores in Africa. The e-commerce store, it's branded NBA. It has all the teams. It represents everything. And then you've got your stadium stores. So when you actually go to the event, this is an example of the All-Star in Indy, which when the stadiums have the infrastructure where there is retail available, it churns through and it really, really does wonderful numbers at certain events. So there's kind of three key elements to your direct-to-consumer retail across a licensing business. And then if there's also general retail, and this is a really important part. If you think about where you can buy the Puma football, it's not just from one or two retail outlets, it's from sports stores around the world. And so partners like Nike, like Puma, like Adidas, like Cynthia and Sarah's apparel, a company that are a licensee for Arsenal, we work really closely with general retail. And there's an example here where Decathlon has a partnership with the NBA. They're a licensee of the NBA as a retailer and enables them to produce product and sell it directly to their consumer. So there's general retail and then there's owned retail. The general retail is a really important part of the strategy and how you get the product to the fan.
So I have a question. You're from the GRA, right? You're from the the GFA. Sorry, I have a relationship with GRA, so we bring them for basketball often. So I always find myself referring to GRA. So GFA, what's your strategy for licensing and merchandising? Do you have one? Okay. So if I wanted a jersey today, what would the process be for me to get one before I go home? Of a shop? Okay. All right. Oh, in a couple of days. So guys, you heard it here first. In a couple of days, we'll be able to buy the jersey at a shop at the Accra Stadium. That's good marketing. That's a good place to get guys to know that they can buy the jersey. Okay, so one of the things that really comes to mind for me in this space is understanding the African consumer. 1, 2, understanding our distribution networks and how people buy. Because not everyone goes to the store because there's a perception that the store sometimes is expensive, right? A perception. So how do you, I know that in Kenya we have a football team, Gor Mahia, and what they've done is currently, actually they've just signed with Sherry Ngowi, I think he's Nigerian, and he's a Nigerian designer. So they'll be coming up with something. But one of the things that they've done is that they've got, the old containers when they're done. So what have they've simplified the store and made, they've recycled the containers and had that as one of their, shops. And what they're doing is they're taking them to the informal settlements where you have your biggest crowd, and then they have 2 sets of kit. So they have your premium kit, which you can buy in the main store, and then, then you have your second tier kit and T-shirts and stuff. So this is free marketing, this is consulting, eh? So you have your, your second tier kind of merchandise that you can buy in the informal settlements or in the estates and stuff like that. So they've taken the product to the people, and they've been able to differentiate in terms of the levels of the product. So this is something that I think we should be able to adapt. Very important to be able to understand who is your consumer, where do you find them, how do you get this product to them, and how do you position this product so that it makes commercial sense for you and commercial sense for the consumers.
Yeah, and I wanted to add it to that so as you guys know, Côte d'Ivoire won the AFCON, and there was a huge demand for the jersey with the 3 stars, and Puma wasn't publishing, they were not, you couldn't buy it from them. So the FA went ahead and made their own jersey, which was a special jersey with this 3 stars in it, and which basically sold out in a couple of days. So there are other opportunities, like she said before, from, there's the premium, and then under that there are also other opportunities to be able to create merchandise and generate some revenue as well. So this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about Poku, the official match ball. So on the left there, you can see Poku himself, who was really one of the best players for Côte d'Ivoire. And they told a whole story around it. Like I mentioned before, his son came out at the draw for AFCON late last year. They did a lot of content around it. They had a lot of billboards around the city as well. So it was really a 360-degree activation, or 360-degree approach of it, where it was on digital, it also was on billboards, it was on TV, it was also, I didn't hear it on radio, but I don't listen to radio, but I'm sure it was also on radio. It was really everywhere to tell the story over a ball, and but it created something very special during AFCON as well. So, next slide, please. Before giving it over to you, Sarah, when we were working on these slides, on the bottom right, I saw the cap of Manchester United, and I was telling them that 2 weeks ago I was in Morocco, and I saw a lot of Manchester United merchandise, including, those pillows that you put on your neck when you're on the plane, and so they had some of those. So Manchester United is known as, one of the best out there in creating lines of things that people will use, and show their pride of being a supporter of the club.
Yes, which is exactly the business development and the new business. Once you've got your kit, you've got your football, you've got the key elements in place, what else? What other opportunities are there? And it's certainly market dependent, it's brand dependent, this is not a business of one size fits all and this is how you do it. It's really touching on, reiterating sort of Cynthia's point about where your consumer is and how you build this product. And licensing is about finding partners that make the product, that will pay you the revenue, that actually do that job for you. So you'll see on the left, the Brooklyn Nets. This is product that is just solely branded Brooklyn Nets. There's no other co-brand to it. It's a licensed product. It's generally, not necessarily always, but it's generally a little bit more of a more competitive price point. It might sit in different retail channels. And using the US as an example, which is very mature and not relevant to every market that we're talking about today. a key part of player licensing is gaming and collectibles. So big deals with the likes of a Topps and Panini and trading cards, and did a lot of work actually with Cynthia and her team whilst we were at FIFA on what does that kind of look like from a digital perspective, from a microtransaction perspective, and how you kind of just start to look at different revenue streams. Doesn't necessarily need to be buying a $5 pack of trading cards. And then you've got headwear. They're endless. Manchester United, sleep pillows. You've got key rings. You've got surfboard. You've got everything that your imagination is your only limit. But it's an important part of your business development, and it's not necessarily going to generate the revenues that you'll get from some of your big branded partners. But it really is about your fan and what they want, and the consumer, and your touch points, and the why and the emotion.
Those who know me know that I'm a huge PSG fan, so I'm proud about this. So the first one is the change of the logo from PSG. So starting in 1970 when they were founded, you can see an evolution of the logo, starting from something which was quite simple, the ball, and then that boat represents Paris itself, moving on to various iterations of that. The one from 1992 to 1996, actually just quite simple with the PSG, and if you see the letters are a little bit off, misaligned, and it actually represents the Parc des Princes. So if you go to the Parc des Princes, it has a similar structure. The building itself has a similar structure, so that was quite interesting. But the big one really was the change that they made from the one that they had from 2011 to 2013. So they really simplified their logo. You can see that Paris is really what stands out. The Saint-Germain is a little bit smaller. They really simplified it, and it was also the time where, if we remember more recently, Juventus and other clubs as well have simplified their logos. It makes sense aesthetically, but it also makes sense in terms of brand recognition and also commercially as well. If you have less colors, if it's less complicated, it's also easier to be able to produce some of these logos as well. And with that, they were able to, see a growth from 100 million to 800 million. Sarah, maybe you want to give more detail about that.
Yeah, I think this kind of slide is the case study of PSG, and it's not saying the numbers are the numbers we should all aspire to. I think it's the percentage. It was a strategic kind of move on the logo, and that simple kind of change, if you like, elevating Paris, just took their commercial revenue, and this is the total commercial revenue, so includes partnerships as well, so sponsorship, partnership, but you can just the results over the last 10 years have been pretty unprecedented.
Yeah, certainly. And Paris being the capital of fashion, they also did some collaborations. They did one in the most recent Paris Fashion Week, but they started in 2017, 2018 with Christelle Kocher and Manish Aurora. And then also the importance of signing key marquee players. At the time it was Neymar and Mbappe, and then when Messi came in, it just went to another level. Because Messi is loved everywhere in the world, So yeah. Yeah,
I think this. The Jordan brand on I think it was introduced in Champions League third kit it was a game changer. All of a sudden you're seeing, Justin Timberlake wearing PSG and famous people around the world, and it was a real game changer. It was something I think the club pushed back on a lot, and Nike really pushed it, and I think we may all agree it was probably one of the best concessions that management made at PSG, and it really kind of put it on this is your fourth pillar. It's just cultural, it's cool, it's association with another brand that's not necessarily PSG, and it's completely elevated it from a local Paris brand team, maybe European, so sorry my Australian, really to a global phenomenon. And then you look at the Messi numbers at 60 million, maybe not a million from Mbappe, but globally it was about a $60 million bump in retail sales for Nike, and then the royalties back to the clubs. And then what that's kind of done is that now PSG went into every retailer around the world from a Nike sports perspective. And now Messi goes, but it still has a presence, and so the numbers have maintained themselves. So it's just a really interesting case study, and I think PSG has been one of the original, certainly in sport, that have really driven the collaboration. And now Cynthia's got a super cool Arsenal, Labrum, London collaboration, but PSG were real leaders in looking at how you could collaborate with different brands. So it's a credit to them, I would say.
I keep coming back to my friends at the GFA. Who are we collaborating with here in Ghana? Let's think about that. I like to leave solutions whenever we come at home, so there's always opportunity. Great, so I'll talk about a football club that in the last, I think, 2-3 years has really kind of just picked up in Africa. How many of you are familiar with Yanga FC? Yeah, so, and how many of you are familiar with Simba? There's more Simba fans here. I'm a Yanga fan, so I'm a little afraid. Yeah, but these are two clubs in Tanzania that have really kind of, changed how we're looking, not changed, but woken up to the conversation. So at any given game that you have, Simba or Yanga, the stadium's full. It's got 60,000 fans at any given time. 60,000. The stadium is always full. When they released their shirt for last season, it's standard. The shirt, I remember the Haji, who is the vice president of Yanga, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I need a Yanga shirt. And he told me, you'll have to wait about a month because we released the shirts today, and in 2 hours they were gone. And they were very affordable. They were about between $15 to about $28, thereabout, if you change it to, and they were manufactured locally. So how do you build your industry, right? So they were manufactured locally, and everyone was, screaming and dying for them. And I'm so happy. I was at the game, the Hearts of Oak and Kotoko game, and it's one of my dreams, so I'm very excited that I got to experience that, but I saw a lot of gaps. There was so much opportunity from, this perspective when it comes to, how you enter the stadium, how you interact with the teams. Sarah and I were asking, how do we know how much time is left? It sounds very simple, How do we know how much time is left? How do we know what the scores are? How do we know which team is sitting on which side? Which team is which one? We're visitors. You can imagine we came from all the way and we've left without that information. Of course, we asked Jon, but that's how you build culture. The assumption that those who are there know. Your diehard fans will always be your diehard fans. The business that comes from licensing and merchandising comes from being able to draw your business to beyond your core fans. So, I'm never ever probably going, okay, I might go to PSG, but the likelihood of a young African fan going to, PSG so that they can have that experience is very rare. But what they've been able to do is buy into our soul. So we're now buying into a culture that's not ours. So how do we do that and, figure out like what Yanga has done? They are able to tell you how many fans they have currently in Tanzania. And now they're picking their stats out of Tanzania. They can tell you how many shirts. They have an app, and in this app, you can be able to interact with the brand, which is the team, but you can also interact and purchase and do so much more. And you know, the question then becomes, how do you turn this logo, this idea, this culture, how do you turn it to value and have a sustainable, you know, infrastructure or system that can then build your business or your, you know, your football business, your team business. So Yanga have been able to do that. I'll give you a secret. 5 years ago, they signed up with La Liga, and I know La Liga has been working behind the scenes to help them kind of structure this to get them to the next level. But you don't have to go to La Liga. We're here. We're Africans, and we get the business. So I'm selling here. I'm selling. No, so you understand what I'm saying, guys. If you run a team, it's your core community is critical to come to the game and everything. But the way you build your business beyond your core team is how do you then build your culture so that those who are in East of Africa want to come to your game. I have been a proponent for time, so I've been told I have 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes. I've been a proponent of time since we started the conference. So 5 minutes is, are we past time or are we on time? We're past time? So this is basically one of the last slides. So I'll give it to Sarah and to Jon to kind of close up. But my last words is, the business is not going to come from anywhere else. We have to have a strategy, and that strategy is, you know, your top commercial strategy, and then you break it down to your marketing strategy, break it down to your licensing and merchandising strategy, and see how that flows into everything so that you can maintain the numbers that you need.
Okay, we also wanted to give another example. I'm going to speak really quickly and then we'll move on from Sporting Lagos, a little bit more, well, closer to home. What we found they did really, really well, and I've experienced this, and I believe Sarah also went on their website, is the way that they're able to sell their merchandise in a way that's e-commerce. So a little bit of background. Sporting Lagos was started by the owner of Paystack. I'm sure some of you guys know Paystack. He started this club, and the way that they market their jerseys and how easily you're able to get the jerseys is something that is fantastic. Either you just call them and then they send it to you, you pay Momo. Well, in Nigeria it's transfers, not Momo. Or you go on their website and literally in 2-3 clicks, you pay, and then they send to someone and they send it to you. So that's a fantastic way and an opportunity also for our local clubs to be able to give the opportunity for those who want to be able to don their jerseys, not only in physical retail stores, but also an e-commerce solution as well.
I guess we are at the end of our session, and you know, what does this mean for Africa? I think I've finished with that, you know, the solutions are not going to come from anywhere else. Africa is our home, and so we have to be able to understand who our people are and what their needs are, and come up with solutions that make commercial sense for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our